Yoga of love and relationship. So now we are going to move from romantic love, which became very controversial. I didn't realize. I think we are losing faith in romantic love as the device or instrument for transformation. I think there are so many disappointments in the relationship that eventually we don't think it's a good idea. But as we mentioned, there are so many doors, and from brain's point of view, all those doors goes to the same location in the brain, which is called limbic system, emotional or feeling brain, where pleasure centers are located, and also it is the location for the creativity. So now the next door in this yoga and relationship we are going to explore is creativity as love, when love becomes creativity. So that is another door. So people who cannot avail other doors of the body, revolution in the external world, revolution in internal world through romantic love, then we can come to the creativity. And that becomes the door for liberation. All creative actions have potential to take us to the ultimate. So that is what we will be exploring today. Before that, any questions from last few sessions? If anything is not clear, any thoughts, any comments? Okay, so we'll proceed, and we will start with a chant, a gentle chant. Sarvesham Srajanam Bhavantu. Sarvesham means everywhere. Srajanam means creativity. Bhavantu means be. Let creativity be everywhere. Because if there is a creativity, there is a tremendous love. But this love is not outside anymore. We are moving inside. So we'll explore a little bit and move to another door. So let's chant this gentle mantra. Follow me after I chant. Sarvesham Srajanam Bhavantu. 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 Sarvesham So this creativity in yoga, I think some of you studied yoga, and eight-limbed yoga called Ashtanga Yoga. And this Ashtanga Yoga is not about physical postures or asanas. It is a whole system which was composed by great yogi Patanjali from 4th century BC. And it was deeply influenced by Buddhism and Jainism. And the most important part of that yoga is samadhi. And unfortunately, very few people go deep into samadhi because samadhi is a concept very difficult to understand unless we experience it. And the beauty of samadhi is that it has many layers. And it is not only about the final liberation, which in yoga is called nirbij samadhi, and then kaivalya. Kaivalya means absolute aloneness. And what that means is when there is only pure consciousness. And once it comes to pure consciousness, it is independent and unconditional. That is why it is called absolute aloneness, Kaivalya. But Patanjali not only touched the ultimate liberation, ultimate samadhi, he started at the very bottom. So he talked about Savitar Samadhi, Anand Samadhi, Sa Asmita Samadhi. We are not going to explore that because that is not our focus. Our focus is on one Samadhi which he mentioned called Vichar Samadhi. Vichar. V-I-C-H-A-R. Vichar Samadhi. Savichar Samadhi. And the Savichar Samadhi happens at the level of mind. At the level of mind. Samadhi means when we are discovering our original nature. And that original nature doesn't mean that we are discovering only the God or the ultimate, the divine truth. We are discovering all the layers of our being because they are equally important. And one of them is Vichar level. So that is why Savichar Samadhi. And it is at the level of mind. So even from that point of view, mind becomes the door. Mind need not to be rejected. That is what Patanjali wanted to say. Vichar means, if you really translate it into English, it literally means thinking, thoughts. Thoughts. Normally what we do in creativity, our creativity is the tertiary creativity at the level of the third category. So there are three levels of creativity. I want you to understand so that we can go into the door or the love of creativity more deeply. What is the original creativity? The first great creativity. It is nature. Nature is the primary creativity. That is why it is called Prakriti. So the name in Sanskrit, I think some of you heard, pra means primal and kriti means creativity. Primal creativity is called Prakriti, which is nature. Anything which is original in our universe, in our cosmos, is nature. Everything else is secondary. So when human beings say, it is my original work, actually that is not true. Human beings can never create any original work, because this is all created by nature. There is a second-hand work. But a lot of people think, oh yeah, whatever they have created is very original. So Einstein may say, oh, my theory of relativity is original. Absolutely not. Because it was already there. What he calls relativity, those cosmic laws are already there. But his mind, because of his special brain constitution, could perceive that, articulate it, write about it in mathematical form. But it is a second-hand creativity. There is no originality in it. If Mozart said, this is my original composition, actually no. Because in nature's world, that composition is already there. Not only one composition, there are trillions of them. So all the future musicians, when their brain is ready to receive that, they will articulate it and they will express it. So that is the second type of creativity which we think is original. But then there is a third type. And third type is when we take this secondary type of creativity, mix it, all kinds of interpret it, and we borrow it and we use it. And that is what happens to most people. So the original creativity by nature, secondary creativity by certain human beings whose brain is wired in a special way. So for example, Einstein's brain was thoroughly studied and dissected in McMaster University in Hamilton, where I teach also, and they found that Einstein's brain was different, it was complete. Then the third type of creativity is when I imitate, I borrow from others. So what Patanjali says basically, the second type of creativity which Einstein has, which a Mozart has, which a Vincent van Gogh has, which Ernest Hemingway has, which Sri Aurobindo have, we all of us have that second type of creativity. But most of the time, what we do, we borrow from this second-hand creativity. We borrow other people's thought and use it, which is beautiful. There is no harm in it. But what Patanjali says, that you can move from this third creativity to the second creativity. Instead of borrowing thoughts, our thinking can become active. So these are the two things, thoughts and thinking. Most of our thinking is involved through other people's thought. But Patanjali says, no, nature gave you a capacity to interpret the original creativity of nature, so you can develop your own second state of creativity, your own thinking. And that is what becomes the process of knowing. Process of knowing. So we are moving from knowledge to the knowing. So do we understand these three types? Because that is the beauty of yoga. So yoga, first of all, takes us from the borrowed thought, borrowed ideas, to the knowing, so we can have our own unique interpretation. And then yoga will take us even further and it will allow us to merge into the nature which created the original, everything original. And that is where we enter into the source of everything. We become the Prakriti. We dissolve into it. Our consciousness first time identifies with it. So that is the idea to come to the second state of creativity. Because when we borrow thoughts, we feel excited because we read a book. So if you read Osho particularly, I think some of you have read Osho. Osho is very intoxicating. Very intoxicating. It's like a beautiful wine. He's one of the great ones. His narratives are so beautiful. But the problem is, you drink this wine in the morning, in the evening, and in the morning it is all gone. So you again try to read, because that is the beauty of his writing. You again feel intoxicated in the evening, and again in the morning it is gone. You cannot depend on it, but still it stimulates something in you. And what it stimulates is the pleasure centers in the very center of the brain. But if you move from that third type of creativity, borrowing thoughts, to the second type, what will happen? You will stimulate your own centers of joy, centers of pleasure from yourself. You need not to borrow from anyone. It will come from within. And if you keep on going on this path, one day we will have a breakthrough, and after that we will become creativity. And that creativity will never disappear. And that is the difference between a yogic creativity and ordinary creativity. What happens in ordinary creativity? It comes to you like all these creative people, it will come to them and they are in a high state. They are in a state of joy, pleasure, flow, ecstasy, bliss. But what happens when it disappears? They are left with despair. That is why a lot of creative people become addicted. They are addicted to all kinds of things. That is why their life becomes so turbulent. But in a yogic creativity, we take one step further. And what is there? We become the master of creativity. And what that means? Now we don't depend on creativity, because we are the master of creativity and we can become creative at any time we want. It is serving us 24 hours. So suppose if you want to say, I want to create this. You drop that idea, and in few seconds, in minutes or hours, something will emerge and it will be created. Because yoga is all about becoming the master. And master means awareness. So please understand, whenever we say control in ordinary sense, that means I want to possess it. But in a spirituality and yoga, mastery means awareness. I'm aware of it. Once I'm aware of it, of course, it is available to me at any time. That is the real meaning of control and mastery in yoga. It is entirely different from the control or mastery in ordinary world. So that is the beauty of this creativity, vichar samadhi, about which Patanjali talks, that we become the master of creativity. And once we become the master of creativity, the joy of creativity never disappears because it is always available. It is functioning on its own, and it is not that it comes and goes. Because then only it becomes the source of liberation, a complete freedom. But if ordinary creativity comes and it goes, we are left with sadness, emptiness, despair, disappointment, low energy. And that is where a lot of these creative people, they start experimenting with drugs because they want to induce the same state of creativity. So a lot of them become very destructive. So that is how creativity is the door. And I read a story, it is a folklore. It is a story of Vachaspati Sharma, a great scholar and sage who wrote commentary about non-dual Vedanta. He started writing it, and after 7 years, it was completed. And after completing it, when he raised his head, what he saw, there was a woman standing before him with some food. He was startled. He asked, "Who are you?" The woman said, "I'm your wife. You don't remember you got married to me?" He said, "I don't." He said, "Yes, we got married, and since then you were just right and you were completely gone. And my function was to fill up the oil in the lamp, which was burning 24 hours so you could continue to write. And my function was to bring food for you." Because he was so much lost. This is, of course, folklore. It cannot be reality. But just to indicate that how creativity became a samadhi for him. So Vachaspati, listening to his wife, cried. He said, "You must be the first and last wife who served with such dedication to the husband. And I cannot give you anything for those lost years. But whatever commentary I wrote, it will be known after your name, and you will be immortal." And he gave the name Bhamati. So because the wife's name was Bhamati. So still, the name is Bhamati. So if you go into one of the most beautiful commentaries ever written about non-dualistic Vedanta, its name is Bhamati. Just to show that how creativity is another form of deep love in which you can completely be lost, and it can open the gates for ultimate liberation. There is another story, but this is a fact, because it's a 20th century story about great intellectual sage Shri Aurobindo. Shri Aurobindo, I'm not sure whether you heard this name. Shri Aurobindo was experimental spiritualist, because in spirituality, some people, they go to samadhi, they go to nirvana, they go to liberation. But other people, after liberation, they try to discover new layers of realization. And Shri Aurobindo was one of them. And he discovered entirely a new level of consciousness, which is called supramental consciousness. Hardly anybody knows about it because, it is not, people don't understand it. And so there are very few teachers. But that was his discovery. And his spiritual companion, mother, described this scene. It is in Pondicherry, which is on sea coast. So his room was on the second floor. Sea storm is raging outside. And she goes inside his room to close the windows because he used to write continuously for 7 to 8 hours. His body used to become like a rock, absolutely silent, absolutely still. And there is a lamp because in those days there was no electricity, and he is writing continuously. I think in Indian tradition, in modern time, he was the greatest intellectual sage. Nobody else wrote so much as he wrote. And in those days, where there were no computers. So the mother goes inside the room, and what she sees, that window is open, storm is raging outside, but wind cannot come inside. Even the curtains on the window are silent. There is no flutter. Why? Because the whole room developed a rock solid peace. Even curtains became silent. That was her interpretation. Because that was his way, the love of creativity, love of writing, that as soon as he started, he was somewhere totally still, and the writing was coming automatically. So these are the two stories how creativity can be supreme love, how this door of love becomes the door to liberation. But now let's understand from where this creativity comes and why we are not, all of us are not creative. We are creative in small ways, but the nature gifted us with our own original creativity, all of us without exception. So first of all, from where this creativity comes? Does it come from thoughts? No. Does it come from mind? No. It comes from heart. All creativity, without exception, comes from the heart. And heart, from brain's point of view, is where? It is in the central part of the brain. Central part of the brain, as I mentioned, is what we call limbic system, mammalian brain. It is the part where we experience emotions and feelings. That is why if we want to know ourselves, we have to we can only know through our emotions and feelings. We can never know through our thoughts. That is why great Antonio Damasio, who researched, he is a great neuroscientist from United States, and he found that, and he labeled it as, he named it as core self. Really, the core of myself in the central part of the brain, it is connected to that. The lowest part of the brain is connected to the body, because body is a container. But what it contains? It contains my originality. Of course, this originality is number two, because number one originality is all about nature, because that is the primal, original, creative force. But after that, it creates that originality in me, and this originality is in the center part of my brain. And then comes very new human brain here on the surface, and its only function is to interpret this original creativity, articulate it, express it, write about it, or speak about it. But whatever original is in me, that is why when we are in romantic love, we access the same. And whether briefly or for a long time, we become very creative because creative juices are flowing once we are able to access our emotions and feelings. So if we want to open the door of this love of creativity, we have to start feeling ourselves. Science believes in seeing. Spirituality is all about feelings. In science, if you cannot see anything, it doesn't exist. In spirituality, seeing has no significance unless you feel. That is why all transformation is about feeling. Anything beautiful in the life is all about feeling. And that is the difference between science. And seeing in science means you have to observe it somewhere in a computer, on some kind of meter, weighing scale, in some graph, in some MRI, in X-ray, but you have to see it, otherwise it doesn't exist. But in spirituality, in naturality, it's all about feeling. And the moment you dip into your feeling, what lies there is our original creativity. And how we dip into it, because the whole structure of our brain will change. That is why when we do yoga, meditation, breathing technique, whatever you are doing, what you are changing really in you are changing the brain. You are not changing your consciousness because consciousness is already there. The moment you change the instrument of perception, everything will change.
Can it be that somebody has a special talent, but anyway that's not where his or her creativity lies? For example, somebody's very good in painting and copying pictures, but doesn't really create himself? Or is it just that he did not discover his creativity in this yet?
That's right. Person doesn't create. As I said, only original creativity is with nature. It's already there. All those trillions of paintings, millions of poems, thousands of musical composition is already in this room. Literally. That is what we call sometimes Akashic record. This universal living computer, it contains all possible creativity, all possible knowledge, including the science. That is what we ordinarily call God. What is God? God is not an image. It is merely this vast ocean of creativity, idea, thoughts, experiences. This massive. And once your brain is tuned to this, because brain is merely an instrument of perception, what will happen? You will receive on this creativity. And that is why on path of yoga of love or on path of yoga, you are bound to become creative. You have to go through this door. That is why Patanjali says, Vichar Samadhi. Every single yogi becomes creative. Whether they use it or not, it doesn't matter, but you have to go through it. It is the part of you. So even if you are not Einstein, it doesn't matter. You will become creative at one or other point in your life once you are on this path. Because your brain is changing and it has its own original creativity, and you will connect to this vast storehouse which we call universal mind, universal consciousness, God, Akashic record, collective unconscious, as Carl Jung called it. It is the part of you. You cannot escape from it. That was my direct experience, and I couldn't believe it. 1998, and something happened. Came from a trip to California to my home in Hamilton, Canada. And in the evening plane came, I went to sleep, and in the night I woke up around 2 or 3 o'clock. Suddenly, all those questions about which I wondered now were answered. One after another, insights were exploding. It was a maddening night because I couldn't capture all of them. It seems just like somebody opened the floodgates. It was not me. Somehow my brain tapped into that vast oceanic consciousness. That is what called Vichar Samadhi. That is what called creativity. And the beauty is that once you are there, then you are dancing with joy also, because it comes from that part of the brain where pleasure centers are, reward centers are. That is where we get all our happiness. So if you are drinking a cup of coffee in the morning and you feel good, from where that goodness comes? It comes from the same center. If we are enjoying sex, it comes from the same center. If I'm enjoying internet, Facebook, it comes from the same center. You name it, including all the bliss about which we talk in spirituality, that comes from the same center. The beauty of bliss is it becomes permanent in spirituality. But in others, it comes and goes, it comes and goes. But it is all come from the same. Since then, this creativity never left. It happens every single night. Why? The brain is simply tuned into it. Just like a television. That this television had only local channels. So it received only 11 channels. But then it was more finely tuned. It was receiving 200 channels. And then it was more finely tuned. It was receiving all the 400 channels. Now you can see, suddenly you can watch the whole panorama of 400 channels. But the beauty of those 400 channels are, they are already in the atmosphere. But my television is not equipped to receive them, so what I am receiving? Only 11. So I feel everything is just 11 channels. So that is what happens in the brain. That is why the creativity can become such a beautiful door. I will stop for a moment. Any questions? Anything which I am talking is not clear.
The limbic system when you talk about the limbic system, is that why in yoga we're working on the organs to try and improve the organs so that sector is improved?
That's correct. The whole effort is to improve this one. Some people do this by drugs, right? Because they are in a hurry. A lot of sadhus you will find in Himalayas, they go into same state through drugs. Not a very good idea. Short term, yes. So you will know what is there. Long term, no, because it will destroy the brain. We become addicted. Any other question? Any thoughts, please?
I felt that the cells of my brain is evolving a lot, and more and more I channeled the whole book and things like that.
That's right.
But still the rest of the body is lacking behind.
Yes. Very beautiful question. The question is, I feel my brain is evolving faster, but the body remains more or less same. Right.
Even, I have a lot of pain in the body and things
Yes.
like that. Even less.
That's right. That was life's work by Shri Aurobindo, about whom I was talking. Because Shri Aurobindo, after a full realization, yogic liberation, said that yes, my consciousness is changed because my brain is changed, but my body remains the same. It didn't change. It is still afflicted with all this pain and decay and diseases. That was his whole quest. So you must read about, that is one of the 12 books I recommend. It's a masterpiece. It is written by Satprem. I will write that name. Satprem was a French author and a seeker and a yogi. And the name of the book is Shri Aurobindo, or Adventure of Consciousness. So the title is so beautiful, Adventure of Consciousness. So who you are? You are the adventurers of consciousness. And the beauty of adventure of consciousness is, it is the most thrilling journey. When you wake up, you are into this thrill and excitement. When you sleep, you are in thrill and excitement, because this adventure goes 24 hours. So that is the book, Adventure of Consciousness. If you read, then the same question was asked by that, yeah, I achieved all this, but this body will suffer. This body is not changed because this body is made up of matter. So he went into Vedas. Vedas are the original scripture in India, and he found a reference to it, in which sages said there is a way to transform this body. And that is where experimental spirituality of Sri Aurobindo started. And when he went into the non-dual state, he said, problem with non-dual state is, I am finished with the world. I have no interest in the world. So how to bring that light of non-dual consciousness into the body? Because I am so detached. Then the realization of God comes, which is the inferior state, lower state. But the problem is that God doesn't have enough power to transform this body. Because body is the most difficult element in our life to transform. Why? That is why in Kundalini, the most difficult chakras to awaken is first and second chakra. Third, fourth, fifth, sixth, no problem, seventh. First and second chakra are the most difficult. Why? Because those are the chakras of the body. Why it is most difficult? Because in body, consciousness is hidden very, very deep. So if I question you, can you tell me the state of your liver cells? You will say, how I can tell? But when I ask you, tell me about your anger, you will be able to describe. Or tell me your thought patterns which are connected with your father or mother, you will be able to describe in much more details. But once I ask you, okay, tell me what is going on in the inner layer of your intestine, it will be very difficult. Why? Because consciousness is very, very deep into the body. In other parts, consciousness is available, because as we go higher up, we become more and more conscious. That is why it is so difficult to transform the body, because our consciousness, the light of consciousness, cannot penetrate because it doesn't have enough power. That is why Sri Aurobindo said, in non-dual state, I am detached from the world. In the state of God, my consciousness doesn't have enough power. So there must be somewhere in the middle another level of consciousness which will have enough power so it could penetrate the body, and that body will be transformed. And that is what he called supramental. I was talking. And that is clearly mentioned in Vedas. And in Vedas say that there will be a time when the lamp will be lit in the heart of a rock. Means consciousness will penetrate matter fully. And that is how he spent his whole life. And his spiritual companion mother, a French national, continued to experiment, and she was able to succeed partly. And her experiences are recorded in 6,000 pages in a very small book. Was finally released. I think this is 70-page book, and it is known as The Mind of Cell. A day will come in human being, each cell of the body will become conscious. So your question is so right, because this question was asked in Vedic time. This question was asked by Sri Aurobindo, and also Mother experimented upon it.
So the question is good, but the answer is still in process.
That's right.
So I have to channel the answer myself.
That's correct. Just like evolution. Evolution, 10,000 years ago, human beings were very different. Now we evolved. We are living in the age of intellect. The movement which became massive 300 years ago. Intellect is going on for thousands of years, but as a mass movement, the intellect is only 300 years old. And mass movement means when at least 25% people start thinking intellectually and logically. That is why sometimes we say, well, what is the use of the science? Still we are very blind, and still we go with our emotions and feeling. Because the fact is, only 25% or so think that way. But in the future, it will spread even more. But breakthrough in any state comes when 25% people are converted into it. Then it is going to be a mass movement. For example, democracy. Democracy has the same principle. The moment 25% people of the world, they become democratic, the movement is now going to be complete. So still that is not happening. That is for future.
The old tools as meditation, pranayama, chanting,
they are not going to change. They don't have enough power.
Yeah, that's why this is what I feel, what
Yes.
I experience, because I practice and
Practice will help you, your body will become more healthy. But here you are talking about transformation of the body,
yes.
the decay of the body, the way the body functions. Of course, we will make it more healthy, but ultimately there will be a problem. So Sri Aurobindo and Mother were talking about the ultimate problem of the body. Could this body become the part of immortality? When each cell will be awakened, when each cell will be connected with everything in material world. So they were talking about that state. And Sri Aurobindo's work was left incomplete, and he said he is going to be reborn after 150 years. And he will pick up the thread where he left before he died. Let's see what happens. That is what he said.
When did he die?
Pardon? He died in, I think, 1956. Mother died 10 or 15. These are two beautiful books. One book, definitely the first one, I highly recommend, because it will give you a very complete idea of spirituality. It is only 150 or 180 pages, but you have to read each page very carefully, but it will give you solid overview.
Which book you're talking about now?
Pardon?
Which book are you talking about?
Sri Aurobindo, I will write.
The Adventure of Consciousness.
Adventure of Consciousness.
So, but once we reach this super consciousness, we will feel so detached from this materialistic world. So how to cope with the daily life? Maybe you answered before. Do you think that in the future everyone will get more awareness and more consciousness?
Yes.
So everyone will be so all the world will completely transform.
That's right. Whole thing will be transformed. Because now what we do, we take a leap into this detached state. or we are at the level of God, so-called universal consciousness. And both of them cannot transform our world completely. Because if we have to transform this body, and with the body, the whole earth will be transformed, because this body and this earth, they are not two separate entities. It will be a connection from matter to matter, not only from consciousness to consciousness.
But nowadays it would be difficult for a person if he reached this stage to live in daily life. Because the world is so materialistic that you just don't fit yourself anymore into the normal world.
That's right. But that is the statement which comes from what is called Nivrati Marg. People who want to withdraw. But there are sages, there are people who after achieving that state comes fully into this world, merge with this world. And that state is called Sahaj Samadhi. Sahaj Samadhi. This is the last Samadhi, and so many people achieve that. But some people, it's very true, after going to that state, they are gone forever. That is why even Buddhism, they mention Nirvana is samsara, samsara is nirvana. This world is nirvana, this nirvana is the world. So that is possible depending on our nature. But ultimate goal is of course to transform the earth, not to get detached from it. Because that is our mother here.
So what do we actually mean when we say transcending the body?
Transcending the body.
Yeah.
That means that once you experience the body, then you don't identify with it. Because if you are identifying only with the body, you are stuck with it. And most of us do it. We clean it, we bathe it, we make it beautiful, we are changing it constantly, we are feeding it, and our whole life is spent in that. That is why they gave a caution that once you took care of the body, now explore further layers of your being. That doesn't mean neglect it. No, that is not the idea. So, again, coming to the creativity, that creativity is another love. If we are not interested in sex, we are not interested in revolution outside, we are not interested in romantic love, then we can go very deep into this yoga of love through creativity. All of us have it. For some, it comes very naturally. And that is where finally we are starting self-love. Because in the body we were outside, depending on other person. In external revolution we were connected with the world. And then in romantic love also we started with the other person. But here, now we want to know ourselves. I want to know what lies there. So I start feeling, and out of that comes this creative pursuit. We are falling in love with ourselves. That is what happens. And all other loves become secondary. They may be there, they may not be there. So for Einstein, yes, he was married and perhaps he experienced love. It was insignificant. Mozart, of course, he got married too, but for him it was insignificant. For Shri Aurobindo and millions of people, that can become the source, the gate to the liberation. But with one portion, lot of creative people are stuck. Because where the creative people is, he already moved away from the ordinary world. So ordinary world is here, moved here. But this is a very, very precarious state. It is a state of suspended animation. Because here is the divine realization. When one can become the master of creativity. Here one is depending on creativity. So it is a very difficult state because it is between ordinary state and state of realization. And that is why all these creative people suffer so much. Because they cannot accept the ordinary world, but they don't live into this higher state of being. They have glimpses, and that is why they are driven crazy. So if you look into Vincent van Gogh's Sunflower, that painting, what is the quality of that painting? It as if it is lit from inside. If you really look at that painting, it seems like those sunflowers are glowing from within. How Vincent van Gogh could paint that? Because he literally saw the divine in it. Because that is the quality of divine perception. Everything is lit. Everything is full of light from within, not outside light. But he couldn't hold it. That is why finally what he did, he shot himself. He was in such despair. He wanted to shoot himself in the heart, but the bullet went into the stomach. He bled for 48 hours and died. Because we need one more leap. Creativity is merely a door. And we have to keep on going. Just in romantic love, it is the door, this is not the end. The moment I focus on romantic love will be destroyed. The moment I am focusing on external revolution only, I will be disillusioned, because world sooner or later will come to its old ways, or my revolution will become stale and old. Sex, if I am depending on sex, sooner or later this body will become old, and then I will repent where my life is gone, because these are merely the doors. So that is also agony of creativity.
Could it also be that it becomes rather like a barrier, because if you're especially good in it, it feeds a lot on the ego as well?
That's correct.
It makes it then therefore even more difficult to shatter the ego?
Exactly. That is why it is door, and I have to become aware. That is why Patanjali says, after Vichar Samadhi, the next Samadhi is Anand Samadhi. The next Samadhi is Asmita Samadhi. Next Samadhi is Asampragya Samadhi. And then Nirbij Samadhi. And finally, Kaivalya and Sahaj Samadhi. Because quite often we can stuck or be so proud of our creative work that we don't move. So he says, keep on pushing, so much more has to come. Our goal is Kaivalya, the love which soaks each atom of this universe. Unless we reach there, all other love are merely doors, depending on our nature. You are so right. Because they can become the part of our ego, and we are stuck. Ordinary ego is easy to deal, but when ego is spiritualized, that is the most difficult ego. Because when I think I arrived somewhere, now it is going to be very difficult. So that is where again essence is awareness. That is why on any path of yoga, as soon as you say, I experience this, they say, let go, let go, let go. Keep on going, keep on going. In Zen tradition, they used to do, some disciple came, Sir, I experienced this. And they just shouted and said, get out, get lost. Because the moment you will arrive, you will never say, you will become silent. So that is what happened. This disciple came 12 times, and each time what teacher did, he took a stick and chased him away. And then for the last 6 months, the disciple didn't come. He said, where is that guy? He said, he's sitting somewhere under the tree. The teacher goes, and he's just sitting silently. Teacher goes to him, say, yes, you arrived. And he said, I'm ready to leave this ashram, my monastery. Take charge of it. You become the teacher, you become the master. Because these experiences can make you stuck forever in substitute satisfaction. That is the whole danger of experience. You are so right. I think will that any question before we stop?
Any ways that you would advise to like induce creativity, like say like writing and stuff like this, or
Yes, any type of creativity.
to induce it by the self,
By the self, because you have to initially become aware of it, and you start from there, cultivate it. It becomes another pranayama, another meditation, another yoga. No need to do any kind of yoga, because that will become your goal, and you just keep on pushing it. Okay, if there is no question, I will stop here, and I think it will be a good idea to do some practice now. So it will be a repeat of this meditation and breathing, breath of love or breath of heart. And from there we will go into meditation. Meditation can be done in any pose. There is no particular pose. Sitting, lying, standing, walking. But if you want to ask in sitting, what is the meditation pose? Your back has to be straight but not tense. Why? If you really look, 33 pairs of nerves, they come through the spine. So if our posture is not good, they will be pinched somewhat. So there will be poor flow of energy. So this is one. Number two, your neck is never straight like this, because this is the posture of a soldier. And why? Soldier will take this posture in order to feel confident. Because once you do that, you stimulate a particular type of prana called udana, rising prana, because there are 5 types of prana in yoga, and one of them is that once you do that, it stimulated. You feel confident, you feel less fear. That is why all soldiers are told to keep their head. But in yoga, in meditation, we want to experience and feel everything. If we have fear, if we have anxiety, all is to be felt. So how our neck will be slightly bent. There is another reason for it, slightly bent, not too much, because if we bend it too much, it will become Jalandhar Bandh, the neck lock. Why we slightly bend the neck? Because there is a little bit of occlusion of carotid arteries. There are two arteries here which take the blood to the brain. Once they are slightly occluded, the blood pressure will rise in them. And once the blood pressure will rise, our parasympathetic nervous system will be stimulated, which will cause deep relaxation. Shoulders to be dropped, and our chest is not constricted. Our chest has to be open to receive. This kind of posture is in fear. This kind of posture is more relaxed and more open. Then our hands are touching each other, and so our feet. Why? Because we want to create a circle of energy. If you are putting your hands like that, what is happening? Your body is throwing away the energy. The moment you do that or you do that, now there is a short circuit of energy. That is why baby in the womb is in fetal pose. It becomes a circle of energy for better growth. So no matter what pose, so when I am sitting here, what I am doing? I am touching my ankle with each other, and that becomes meditation pose also in chair. Okay. Closing your eyes softly. Why closing the eyes in the beginning? Because more than 90% of human perception happens through the eyes. Lot of energy flows through the eyes. We want to block that energy so it will flow within us. Eyes are softly closed. Shoulders are relaxed. Hands and feet are soft. Neck slightly bent. Back is straight. And now bring your gentle focus and attention to your breath. You are not changing your breath, just becoming attentive of your breathing as you inhale and exhale. You are now established in your gentle, normal breathing. So bring your focus deep into your chest, inside, and feel your feeling heart. Because there are two types of heart. One is anatomical, physical. Another one, almost in the middle of the chest or slightly on the right, is your feeling heart, where you experience love, joy, heartbreak, that emotional pain. Feel that heart. And bring a memory of love from the past. That memory when you were in deep love about something or some person. Allow that memory to become alive into your feeling heart. You are not watching it, you are experiencing it here. As if that moment of deep love is here and now. Let your heart space fill with that love energy. And let that love energy fill your whole chest. This love energy is like light. You glow with it. And slowly it is filling your whole body. Your head space is filled with this love energy. So are your eyes, face, neck. Your arms and shoulders are filled with this love energy. Your belly and organs are filled with this love energy. And your leg, feet and toes are filled with it too. Your whole being from within is soaked with it. Each cell, each thought, each feeling contains this energy of deep love. When you breathe in into this love energy in your heart. When you breathe out, you're breathing out the same love energy. So you are breathing out love. And allow that love energy to fill the room, surround you. It is inside, it is around you, it is in the whole room. And everything in this room, people, furniture, wall, is touched by that love energy. And your breathing now becomes little more slow, little more deep. But it remains gentle. You are going deeper and deeper into this love energy. And as you inhale, you silently chant aham. As you exhale, premam. Aham, premam. Silently. I am the love. Aham, premam. And in this state, we accept who we are. Whatever we are. We embrace ourselves with love. Feeling within, feeling around, feeling the whole room, all the people, everything. Whenever we feel, slowly opening our eyes. And we will end our session with affirmation of love, which Shivagi did, but this time we will add movement to it. And we will do it standing. So the movement will be I love for me, I love for you, I love for all, I love, I love. All love starts from the self-love, that is by I love for me. It goes out, I love for you, the people. I love for all, the universal love. And when we go beyond into unconditional love, it is simply love. I love, I love. So this affirmation has the whole spectrum. And I will just demonstrate it once so that you know. It has to be with music from the heart. The body, if it sways, allow it to sway. So I will demonstrate. I love for me, I love for you, I love for all, I love, I love. Now we will do it together. Just from the heart, close your eyes so you won't be aware about others. Just from inside. I love for me, I love for you, I love for all, I love, I love, I love for me, I love for you, I love for all, I love, I love, I love for me, I love for you, I love for all, I love, I love, I love for me, I love for you, I love for all, I love, I love, I love for me, I love for you, I love for all, I love, I love. Thank you very much for joining me. We will conclude our session here. And again, if you want to write your email here, anybody want to be in touch, you are welcome. The booklets are here, free. And tomorrow is going to be the last session.